Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Planet Tyro. You're back here with your host Donald Wunder, and we're going to have another discussion about a nice little book trilogy. It's been a while since I did a nice series of books all at once, and this one we're going to be talking about today actually just ended, so it's very, very recent. Actually, there's talks of it being adapted into a movie. That's not the reason why I checked it out. It actually has a lot of good high remarks on Goodreads. It's very well acclaimed, and on top of that, my favorite audiobook narrator read these books in audiobook form. That's Tim Reynolds. I've spoke about him on the Raira series. I spoke about him on another book you should check out that I put a YouTube card link. You check out this book. It's really good, one single book. But we're going to be talking about the Red Rising trilogy. It's a series of 3 books written by Pierce Brown. It is a dystopian young adult tale, but unlike the ones, Hunger Games, Divergent, it's different, and it's actually more appealing, more war-based, and more, I don't want to say geared towards males, but that romance, lovey-dovey, love triangle shit, I'll just tell you right now, that's not in this book at all. So let me start with the premise, and we'll get on to how I felt about each book as it went along. So, the Red Rising trilogy introduces us to a young man named Daryl. When the book starts, he's 16 years old, he's a miner, and he actually works on Mars. So that's the first thing that makes the book different. It's set on Mars, and he toils deep in the mines of Mars to search for fuel, because in this world, they're trying to inhabit Mars, and to do that, they've sent some people over to Mars to colonize it, to dig fuel, and to populate the nation. And anyway, Daryl lives in a society where they're all miners and they're very young, and Daryl's actually got a wife. 16-year-old guy's got a wife, and they live in a very poverty-stricken community. It's very tribal, to be honest with you. They all dig for the oil, they're very poor off, and they've been told by some higher-ups that they're the first people there. They're going to help the Earth migration plans, but to get Mars ready, and they're doing a big job, blah, 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 blah. This turns out to be bullshit, by the way. Spoiler, but this is part of the plot. So in the beginning of the book, Daryl and his 16-year-old wife, they commit a crime, and without going into spoilers, it turns into tragedy. The crime results in them being punished in a very tragic way that leads Daryl onto an adventure, or onto a revelation that the world he thought about Mars and them colonizing Mars, it's not what he seemed at all. There's a massive revelation, and what this trilogy ends up being is about prejudice, about mostly this hierarchical system where people are classed under colours: blue, red, green, yellow, gold, and each class is, they're more along the lines of poor to rich, paupers to middle class workers, to royalty, to rich, to the spoiled, and how, just like I guess in the Hunger Games, some factions are being completely destroyed and abused and even enslaved, and how Daryl is gonna start the Red Rising, and he's a red is like the lowest of the low, and how he's gonna get revenge and kind of change the universe, blah 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 blah. So anyway, this is a war themed story. Most of it is about Daryl trying to change his fate, the fate of his people, and the whole the class system of the whole universe. So let me get into it. First of all, the first book, Red Rising, I enjoyed it for the most part. It has a very slow start, because again, you're seeing it from him being the perspective of a miner and his wife, and then when the curtains are drawn and you see what's really going on, that's when the book starts. Probably that's a quarter of the book, so that part of the book was kind of boring. But once this book kind of reminded me of Gattaca, in the sense where the character has to go under this transformation to infiltrate the system, and then I guess the first book turns into a more extreme version of the Hunger Games, where he gets into another society, another class of people, the gold, and it's a lot of, I don't want to say kids killing kids, but it's strategic. There's a war game going on for most of the first book. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers. The first book I enjoyed as a young adult action story that didn't have those stupid tropes of romance. This was very, it's very young adult. It's young adult without a doubt, but it's very mature, and it sticks to the point of dealing with this main character and his goal. And that was the interesting part. As for the character himself, a problem I have through all the books is I found it hard to care about the character. And this is actually not to do with Pierce Brown's writing. It's just the way he wrote the story. The main character, Darrow, internalizes a hell of a lot through the book. He's always going through his mind. But, I mean, in the beginning, where the tragedy happens to him, the first thing that sets off the whole story, I didn't feel for the tragedy because I didn't know the characters long enough. So, you know, it was a bit of a drag, and I should have brought the connection. But for some reason, I was interested to see him, and I felt sorry for him, but I didn't have a real emotional connection to a lot of the deaths in this story. And honestly, that goes through all of the rest of the books. So let me just finish off this first book. I read the first book. I really enjoyed it as a more extreme version of the Hunger Games and Gattaca, and it was very mature in its war theme, and there was no stupid bullshit love triangle, and the narration by Tim Gerard Reynolds was fucking excellent. The second book now, Golden Sun, honestly was a bit of a slog, because the first book ends where, you know, he's reached a point now where what's going to happen now? He's made a lot of progress in his mission, but now he has to take his mission to the next level. And the second book is how Darrow has to take his mission to the next level with all the politics and all the houses. And honestly, if this wasn't an audiobook, I've read a lot of negative comments that the second book was very droll, very boring, very slow. It is very political, I'm not gonna lie, but it wasn't boring. It was just like, man, this is okay. But you know, there wasn't as much action. It was all the politics. But from a writing perspective, it was the middle bit that joined everything together. So I understood that, and I don't need all this flashy stuff to carry the story. It's a trilogy. The first part was action. The middle part there's a bit of action there, and there was good parts as well. But by the second book, the other characters in the book, again, I didn't emotionally feel for them. Even the villains, I just thought, you know, I'm just listening to the book. It's very interesting, but I felt detached. For some reason, I just couldn't emotionally connect with the characters. But the story was still fun. It was a fun watch. It was very superficial. And to me, I don't know if I've read way too many of these books, because it is starting to wane on me. And to be honest with you, even the plot line, there's a bit of a recipe that you've seen before. So I kind of knew how it was going to go. Now, a lot of people complain because I think the book came out, the second book, Golden Sun, came out last year, and the second book ends on a very negative cliffhanger. The first book ends on a very resolute, the second book ends on a cliffhanger, and the third book that just came out this year wraps it up. And the third book to me, it was a combination of the first and the second one. It has the action of the first and the politicalness of the second, but it all brought together in a much more believable way. And by this time, two characters I felt for. Not the main character. One of the main female protagonists, Mustang, was really good. And another character called Severo. We spent a lot of time with these two characters. I felt for them. They had a lot of personality. These two I emotionally attached with. Even the main character, he made some silly mistakes. He's kind of naive. But again, the writing in this book is good. It's a war. Honestly, it's more war themed for me. War, political themes, a lot of questions. But again, there was a passage in the book where the character even said to himself, I internalize too much and I'm thinking too much. I'm like, yeah, we're hearing, the way the author writes the book is we're hearing Darrow explain all his thoughts like he's a very old man and he's only 16. He's 23 and he speaks like he's an old soul. And I appreciate that as a reader. But sometimes I thought to myself, this guy's a little bit too, I don't know. It felt a bit inconsistent, and it didn't allow me to attach emotionally, because for me to attach emotionally, the things just need to happen. You don't need to tell me all the pain you're going through. I just need to hear it through the story. And I know this is a very, very awkward criticism. You're probably thinking, what the hell is this guy talking about? But as I was reading the story, Darrow was just explaining to me everything he was going through without it just happening. It felt like he was narrating his own life as he was living it at the same time, which was interesting because it was like a journal on the one hand, but on the other hand, I didn't care for anyone, even Darrow. And, you know, even he's a bit of a contradiction. But I would say some people said he was a bit too perfect. Some of the negative reviews have said that Darrow's a bit too perfect. He's a bit too on the ball. I kind of agree. There are some good, the enemies, I'm trying to wrap this up. The enemies in the book, or the bad guys, I guess it's a bit black and white, but I expect that from a young adult novel, not to be very nuanced. Everything's kind of black and white. The good guys, the bad guys. There are some The twists and turns are few and they're kind of predictable. But honestly, the book is really enjoyable. And the biggest commendation I can give it is the ending is good. I like the ending resolution. It didn't take me by surprise, but the last encounter, the way it kind of turned, it was a nice surprise how that happened, and it's a good resolution. So the book series, I'll tell you right now, I'll give it a solid B. The narration, the audiobook is a must, because honestly, that second book, if I was reading that, and I read a lot of people on Goodreads saying they just gave up, I would have given up on the second book. But if you can get through the first book, which is good, the second book, which is a bit of a slog, and the third book, which is a combination of the first two, it's a definition of a solid B. And to that point, you know how these trilogies are being adapted into movies. There's plans for Universal to make this into a trilogy. As far as young adult novels go, I think this is one of the better ones because it's very mature, maybe even too mature to believe these young people are this mature. But I mean, it's my criticism are kind of weird. I enjoyed the story. It wasn't boring. It was a bit slow at parts, but the writing was done consistently throughout. There was the quibbles I have, I guess, overall, I don't know. They kind of wash over. It kind of all rolls into a solid B. As a book series, I think it's going to be pretty good. I think I would enjoy this a lot. The action's good when it's there. The politics is good. I think this is going to make a much better movie because it's going to be condensed, and all the negatives I have are probably going to be rolled. It probably will roll off my head into an action movie. But this is going to be it's a mature young adult war-themed trilogy, and I liked it. Pierce Brosnan did a good job. Jared Reynolds did an excellent job at narration, and I do recommend it if you want a much more mature young adult novel book. I think it's good. I enjoyed it, honestly. So it's a definition of a solid B. Not higher, not lower, perfect solid B. So anyway, guys, I know that was pretty critical because the people are loving the shit out of this and they've left a lot of positive reviews. But let me know what you think of the Red Rising trilogy. Have you read it? Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Forgive me for my ramblingness. I'm just doing this again off the cusp. I like just giving you guys my raw thoughts. And hopefully I can pick up another trilogy that will probably surpass this or entertain you guys. Either way, thanks. You can hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel to become a Planet Tyro Tyron and get all the videos straight to your YouTube feed. If you like the video, hit the like button. Of course, leave a comment, as I said. And don't forget to hit the other annotations on the right there. You can see for animation, books, TV shows, and all the other stuff we do. And if you have a recommendation for something, let us know. But anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for checking us out, and I'll see you on the next one. And again, I want to give a shout out to the people listening on the podcast, on iTunes. Thanks for listening, guys. We haven't forgot about you. We're on iTunes as well as YouTube, if I didn't say that before. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one, guys. Peace out.